Welcome to the Village Green NBTV show on Newport Beach and its environment. I'm Nancy Garden, your host, and today it's trees, 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 particularly the history of trees. We don't think of trees necessarily as being historic unless they're something like the bristlecone pines, but we have some pretty old trees here in Newport Beach, and we're going to look at a few of them. I'm here with John Nelson, the city arborist.
Good morning, good morning.
We're on the Goldenrod footbridge, and I have to do an aside here because there's a plaque at the one end of the footbridge that says when it was built and how the span, and that it was built because it wanted to allow visitors to be able to cross.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, at the time of construction, there was an assessment.
Well, according to my father, the reason it was built was because the city's clerk's mother lived on this side, and if she had to go to the market or anything, she'd had to go make a long walk, so he got the bridge built. So, you know, that's a better story.
Yeah, the story I heard was to make it convenient for this side.
So it was
to make it
particularly
to the beach.
convenient for the city clerk's mother.
Correct, and my understanding too was the residents were upset for the assessment to pay for the bridge.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
We have never liked assessments in this city. Well, we're not talking about bridges, actually. We're going to talk about trees. And Newport, I mean, when we think of historic trees, I think we think about the redwoods and the Bristol, what do they call the bristlecone pines? And,
Right.
and those, you know, some of them are really, really old trees. But our trees, certainly some of them, they can be viewed as antiques.
That's true.
If you say 100 years or
Yeah,
something.
I think they're a living connection to the past.
And so we have some here. And tell us about what we're going to
Sure. I mean, probably a good example to start is here on the Goldenrod Bridge. And along the street, on both sides of the bridge, there was Mexican fan palms or Washington robustas were planted on both sides. And my theory is the reason why they were planted was to kind of point out to the locals where. To kind of point out to pedestrians and where the Goldenrod Bridge is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they probably date back to the late 1920s. And I have several pictures of certain ones during 1947 when they were still about 4 or 5 feet high. And so they've been around nearly 100 years.
Well, good. And so we also have these long pines. Is that what they are?
Yes. That's the Washington.
I mean, palm?
Those are the Mexican fan palms. That's
Mexican
correct.
fan palms. Okay. And you said something about the eucalyptus trees as well?
Certainly. There's some eucalyptus where we call them volunteers. That they weren't deliberately planted, but they happened to pop up out of the ground.
Oh, okay.
And we have some shots of some of the eucalyptus here on the north side of the bridge that were present when the pictures were taken in 1947.
I'm with Kevin Pekar. And Kevin, take it away. You're going to tell us a little bit about the bridge. Since we're on the bridge, you reminded me that I had seen something in the paper about some work that's going to be done. And of course, somebody just walked by and said, "You're not going to do something to the bridge, are you?" It's very sensitive in our town. We all love our bridge, but we're going to improve it. Go ahead.
Right. The bridge is by no way going away. It's going to be enhanced. You can see a lot of the planter boxes are warped, and there's a bad drainage problem with the planters, and they're going to update the drainage system, update the planters, put new redwood planters, new irrigation system, and then also put in the same geraniums that we're used to here. So a little bit off historic tree subject, but it's also a historic site in the city of Newport Beach.
So just while we're here, I was just saying to John that these geraniums just seem to flourish so well here. Do you feed them? I mean, or you just water them? They will grow and grow until you have these beautiful cascading blossoms.
Yeah, we pay particularly attention to them with nipping the blooms so that they extend their blooming cycle. Also fertilization. We replace the soil in the planter boxes quite a bit, so it gets kind of new nitrogen levels, and that's really what it is with all plants. Is the nitrogen is what causes green new growth to extend those stems. So
that's a lot of work, and I think that's a perfect image of the kind of services that we have in the city. I mean, just all the hours that must go into just making this bridge and its foliage look good. That's impressive.
Yeah, for a lot of times there would be like one maintenance worker that would take care of the Bayside Drive Park and this footbridge, and then they would water it a couple days a week, just hand water all this. And now we have kind of more of sophisticated irrigation system where that's not needed as much. So yeah, we're really lucky here in the city.
So we are, by my terms, on Goldenrod and First Avenue,
Right.
but originally,
Yes, this was apparently this was 33rd and 48th Street.
I wonder where they
Before
were
it was
counting
renamed.
from.
Yeah, before it was renamed like 1915. Yeah.
Okay, and why are we here in terms of trees?
So we have another historical shot of
Okay.
the palm tree that's across the street from 1947, when it was just a little tot of about 3 or 4 feet high.
Uh-huh.
So
So we'll be able to look at it and see what it was.
this would be a nice comparison shot. And again, remember,
then and now.
Mexican fan palms can live quite a long time. They can live about 150 years. Generally, with most trees, they'll live about half their genetic potential in an urban environment, but these have plenty of life left in them. So they'll be here for quite some time.
Well, they seem to do pretty well in a little narrower spaces than
Yes.
some other trees.
Oh, they'll grow in a crack in the sidewalk. They're very, very, very robust trees. Yeah.
Okay. Well, while we're talking about Cronenmar, of course, for years we had the street trees. Now they're being variously planted. But I was always told that the reason we have so many trees in Cronenmar is because of Isabel Pease.
Okay.
She
yes.
was
Uh-huh.
I met her when I was very, very young, and I think
Yeah.
in my memory of her, which is probably not correct, but she was quite a big woman, and she had white hair and bright blue eyes.
Right.
But according to my father, anytime someone bought a lot and built a house, she was there and said, "You got to plant a tree."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we want to thank her for that too.
Absolutely. You probably know when's the best time to plant a tree.
When?
20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree?
When?
Today.
Okay.
So yeah, we can thank her for all many of the trees that we have here
Yeah.
in Cronenmar.
Of course, some of her choices we might question.
We would question them, yeah. Well, for example, we use an example just 2 blocks away. We have on Begonia Avenue, we have carob trees. And carob trees have been cultivated for thousands of years. They're cultivated today, and they're kind of a commercial substitute for chocolate.
Right.
So from the beans that they do drop. And what's unique about the ones that are on Begonia, not only their age, we figured they were planted in the 1930s, but you'll see in Begonia Park, you'll see a bunch of carob trees in there. The original layout of that street went through today's park. However, in the late 1950s, they straightened the street out, and they altered the path of Begonia to where it is today. But you'll see the outline of the old street throughout Begonia Park.
Oh, well, I had no idea of that, and I can't wait to go back and walk the park and look
Yes.
at that.
Yep.
Good. I hadn't thought about it before you started to tell me this story about this park and some trees, but trees are they can reveal our history.
That's true, and right now we're standing on the original path for Carnation Avenue. So kind of unique to Carnation Avenue is we have what are called carob trees. Carob trees have been cultivated for thousands of years. They're currently cultivated today as a substitute for chocolate. So look out for carob in your ingredients. And you'll see behind us the original layout of Carnation Avenue. And when they realigned the street, apparently the trees were planted somewhere in the late 1930s. And when they realigned the street in the 1950s, Begonia Park was established, and the street was realigned, leaving these legacies behind. And if you look behind us, you can see the outline of the street.
Can you see it? I mean, I had no idea of that. I mean, I
Yeah,
walk this park a lot with
Right.
my dog, and just walk through the trees,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, they're nice,
So
interesting
now that you
trees.
see the outline of the street, every time you come to this park, you cannot unsee old Carnation Avenue.
And speaking of, since they're carob trees, and they do have pods,
That's correct.
I mean, if you took the pods and ground them up, would they be?
There's a recipe in which to properly cook and cultivate them. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want to do your own, I mean, that would really be for a foodie, wouldn't it? Make their own chocolate
Oh
or
yeah.
their chocolate
Again,
substitute.
it's not as good as
Regular
cacao
chocolate,
chocolate, but
right.
it's a substitute. Yeah.
It won't be Mrs. C's, but
Right. Exactly.
okay, good.
Right.
we've sort of focused on Corona del Mar.
Yes.
But there are a number of other areas that have trees that have been around a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, probably one of significance, and you can see it in front of the Balboa Branch Library. It's on Balboa Boulevard in the median. It's a very large tree. So that one's a Norfolk Island pine. It's fairly common. You see many of these sold during Christmas time as little Christmas trees.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same species. Apparently somebody took theirs and planted it in the median in front of the library somewhere around 1950. And we have a shot from 1954 showing that tree when it was about 8-10 feet tall, and it's still there today. It's approximately 75 feet. And again, it's another connection to the past.
Okay. I think you told me last time there was something about I don't remember whether it was a fig tree or something that was part of something from river, or original.
Yes, yeah, it's called the Aoyama tree, and it was planted around 1912 in Los Angeles in Little Tokyo. It was right next to a house of worship or a temple, a Japanese temple. The tree is still there today. We were very fortunate to get a cutting off of that tree, and they cultivated it and grew it to enough to transplant. And we currently planted that at Grant Howell Park, and it's there today. And hopefully, that tree will be here for another 130 years.
Well, I also remember. When we got our sister city from Japan, we have some of those some sculptures.
Yeah.
Did we do some plantings with those as well?
Yes, we have some. They're called black pines or Japanese black pines, and yeah, we maintain those sister city trees to this day.
We've talked a lot about the past and the history of our trees, but we keep planting trees, and tell us about your feelings about what you're doing today.
Well, I feel like what we do in the Parks and Trees division is we try to legacy build. We're hoping that some of the trees that we're planting today are the legacies, 100 years from now when we're gone. It's always our goal to plant more trees than we remove in the city. I think we've done that pretty much every year for the past eight or nine or so years. I think even the year before last, I think doubled the number of trees that we planted than we removed. I think we planted like over 600 trees in the last fiscal year. So we're really proud of that, and we want to sustain that. We want to make sure that when there's new development in town, that we require the developers to plant trees in front of their city trees in front of their residences, and the trees that they like and that they'll enjoy and that they'll nourish.
Well, on the city properties, I know we've talked in the past about, for example, in a parkway, selecting the right size tree so that it will flourish. Are there particular trees? I mean, trees have different lifespans also. Are there particular trees that you think, well, this will be here 100 years from now or something, that particularly on city property, say?
Yeah, it's important. As arborists, we always say right tree, right place. And so, some of the science is always evolving, and some of the science back when we planted, for example, large eucalyptus in small parkways, for example, like on Poppy, that might not have been the right tree for the right place. We look at the ultimate size of the tree, and we have in our G6 policy a list of trees that will grow in particular sizes of parkways. And so when developers or private residents want to plant a tree in a vacant parkway, we always advise them of the right tree if they need help deciding on the right tree, other than what's provided for them in the list.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you also, as I say, think about in terms of, well, these trees are only going to be here for probably 30 years because that's their lifespan, so we want to intersperse maybe some trees that live longer? Is that ever a consideration?
Yeah, we always, when we're doing our own city planning, tree planning, where it's strictly our choice, right, we're looking at trees that have longevity. For example, there's trees like the plum tree, flowering plum. It's a very popular small tree, but it doesn't last very long. We're looking at planting trees that have a bit more lifespan. where we've planted some Torrey pines in our park, which are a great native tree that get big, and so usually it's the right place that we're thinking of planting those, mainly parks or larger parkways where we're planting those kind of those legacy trees. For example, the ones that went back in on Poppy, where our eucalyptus trees were, the African tulips. Those are trees are gonna last a long time and look beautiful and fit that parkway and not cause as many of the infrastructure problems. I'm not going to promise that you're never going to have infrastructure
You
problems,
don't want
but
sidewalk that goes like that. Well, I'm always impressed. I mean, I love our city for the trees. I go to certain neighborhoods, the view neighborhoods, and of course they don't have trees. Basically, they have shrubs. And to me, yeah, the view is spectacular, but the neighborhood itself is, to me, not as attractive because it doesn't have the trees that we see. I mean, just looking over here, just down this park, we see this wonderful, this almost wall of green, and I'm just so impressed with not only the amount of work and time, but the amount of emotion that I think staff brings. You guys are tree lovers.
yeah,
I mean,
certainly we love our trees, and we always tell the people that are concerned about their view that the trees frame a view. Like, for example, the Brazilian pepper in the background here is framing that view of the bay. So we're always kind of framing that view question for our residents, and I think most of our residents really. I mean, everyone always says they love trees, and I believe it.
well, but it is. It's a tremendous amount of work getting the right trees planted, getting them nurtured, and then of course just maintaining them. It's not only the trimming, but obviously there's so many diseases that come in, some unexpectedly we're not prepared for. All so everybody has to gear up. So you guys do a great job. Thank you.
We could have a whole nother session on diseases and insects of our city trees.
Yeah, yeah, trees in general. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's our show. I hope you learned something. I certainly did about the history of our city. And until next time, let's all work on making our village green.